Hey everybody, Captain Tim here with today's episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 19, Blood Oath. Probably one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine. I got my Captain shirt out for the original series because this is one of my favorite episodes, and it's kind of an important episode with the original series. So, if we look back at the original series, there were three main Klingon storylines. There was Errand of Mercy, which introduced John Koloth as Kor, which is a great episode. It's also the guy that plays Baltar in the original Battlestar, so that's kind of cool. Koloth for the Trouble with Tribbles episode. That was William Campbell's second role in the series, the first as the Klingon, though, which everybody loves Trouble with Tribbles, so that's, of course. And then probably one of my favorite episodes is Day of the Dove, where it has Michael and Sarah as the role of Kang, which Michael and Sarah is probably one of my favorite Star Trek actors, only because he's also the voice of Mr. Freeze in Batman the Animated Series. So we got those three episodes of the original series. Those three actors all reprise those roles in this episode, and it's amazing. It's a little bit difficult for me to critique or review this episode because I'm so just enamored with seeing these three actors come back after 30, 40 years that I don't even know. The writing could just be awful, but the nostalgia for me just takes over. And I'm like, oh, look at them. It's amazing. And I just get super happy. Now, Kor, we'll actually see again. We'll see him in Season 4 and Season 7 of Deep Space Nine. And then Kang we'll see in a flashback in Voyager, where Captain Sulu and Kang kind of have a square off during the 6th movie, Undiscovered Country. So this whole episode can actually just kind of be summed up in a line that Dax has where she says, "Don't mistake a new face for an old soul," which I thought she's talking about herself, because this whole episode is about these three Klingon warriors and Curzon Dax made a blood oath together when an albino Klingon poisoned the firstborn of these three Klingons and killed their firstborn children. Most notably Dax, which is the son of Kang, which our Dax, Curzon at the time, Curzon Dax was the godfather of. So the four of them together make a blood oath to go after this albino, which they never actually name. And I looked it up. There's a huge conspiracy theory that Vok's son in Discovery, that spoiler if you haven't seen Discovery, in Season 2, Vok has a son that is albino, and now there's a conspiracy that child grows up to be this albino. So, whatever. If you guys want to talk about that, go ahead and talk about it in the comments. I'll be happy to discuss it. But for this episode, so Kang ends up finding the albino years and years later, and they go to Deep Space Nine to find Dax, and they realize that it's not Curzon anymore, it is Jadzia, and they don't want her to be a part of it. And it's just amazing to watch these three Klingon warriors and how Dax has to approach each of them different. And by the way, I thought it was interesting that each of them appear in the episode the way that they appeared in the original series, in order. So first we see Kor, and then we see Koloth, and then we see Kang. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And just Kor is this drunk, and he's just falling apart, and it's a kind of a great introduction where Quark is just get him out of my holosuite. Koloth is just all about fighting and sharpening the blades and stuff, and I mean William Campbell is such a good actor. And then Kang is just very all about honor. And I mean, with the voice of Michael Caine, if I don't even look at it just to hear the Mr. Freeze voice, it just gives me shivers. I get it, shivers, Mr. Freeze. Just because he's so honor bound, and he just does such a good job in this role. And it's just really interesting to watch Dax have to approach each of them differently to basically talk them into letting her go with them, which I kind of touched on. It's also interesting to watch because in the original series, it was just the brown makeup and the smooth forehead. And then here it is now, they've upgraded all the makeup, and now we see them in traditional Klingon wear with the long hair and the rigid forehead. And they don't even talk about it. They don't even address it. They don't do anything. They just go on about it. Because at this point, Star Trek hadn't really come up with a reason why. And even when we get to the Trouble with Tribbles episode where Worf goes back in time, like Worf just says, "Oh, we don't talk about that." So it's kind of interesting, and they don't talk about it until we get to Enterprise, and then they try. Personally, I've never needed an explanation. I've said that over and over again. We get it. It was just a product of the '60s, and it's a product of the '90s, and now you got a bigger budget. So I don't need the explanation, but it's interesting to watch how they developed from the '60s to what they look like now. And I guess there was rumors that they had thought about doing that traditional makeup, and they were like, no, we got to keep it with the continuity. What do they look like now? So I really like that. Throughout the course of the episode, they realize that Kang has basically set this whole thing up as basically a way for them all to die with honor, because today is a good day to die. And so, because the albino just has this huge fortress and all of these people, and I mean, let's be honest, Koloth, and Kang are very old at this point. They're over 100 years old. I think it's been like 105 years since the original series at this point. So they're not in the best of shape anymore. And so they're having a very difficult time. And Kang basically gets like taken over by the albino. The albino says, you know what, go to this planet. I'll arm 40 of my best men and they'll just kill you guys with honor. And Kang's like, okay. And so he goes there and Jadzia's like, that's not fucking happening. And so, because Jadzia is a science officer, she comes up with ways to, like, negate their weapons and find the secret passageway, and they actually get in there for a great fight sequence. And then it's kind of sad because Koloth dies and Kang dies, but luckily he gets, like, the final stab wound, and then Kor survives, which is why we see him in later episodes. Like I said, it's an okay written episode, but it's so amazing just to see these three actors and to see, again, like this story dynamic of, is Dax responsible for what had happened in the past lives? And in the Dax episode, we established that no, she shouldn't be responsible for Curzon's mishappenings. And then in some of the other Trill episodes, we've talked about how that's the point of being a symbiote, is you cut those ties and now it's a new life. Whereas in this instance, Dax is like, no, I have to honor this. So, I don't know, overall, I just think this is a great episode. I thought it was really, really well done, and I was super happy to see these actors return. For those who have seen this one, does this episode stand out for you? Is this episode somewhere in your top 10? Go ahead, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about the actors returning, the new updated makeup, and then just overall the Trill host. And then if you guys want to talk about the albino connection to Discovery, go ahead, let me know. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for the 2-part episode, Maquis.